Hello, I am recording the video and today's topic is cookies. A cookie is a small bit of text that accompanies requests and pages as they go between the web server and browser. The cookie contains information the web application can read whenever the user visits the site. The topic contains scenarios, background, code examples, class reference, additional resources. Scenarios: cookies provide a mean in web application to store user specific information. For example, when a user visits your site, you can use cookies to store user preferences or other information. When the user visits your website another time, the application can retrieve the information it stored earlier. Background: a cookie is a small bit of text that accompanies requests and pages as they go between the web server and browser. For example, if a user requests a page from your site and your application sends not just a page but also a cookie containing the date and time. When the user's browser gets the page, the browser also gets the cookie which it store in a folder on the user's hard disk. Later, if user requests a page from your site again, when the user enters the URL, the browser looks on the local hard disk for a cookie associated with the URL. If the cookie exists, the browser sends the cookie to your site along with the page request. Your application can determine the date and time that the user last visited the site. You might use the information to display a message to the user or check an expiration date. Cookies are associated with a website, not with a specific page. So the browser and server will exchange cookie information no matter what page the user requests from your site. As the user visits different sites, each site might send a cookie to the user's browser as well. The browser stores all the cookies separately. Cookies help websites store information about visitors. More generally, cookies are way of maintaining continuity in a web application, that is, of performing state management, except for the brief time when they are actually exchanging information. The browser and web server are disconnected. Each request a user makes to a web server is treated independently of any other request. Many times, however, it is useful for the web server to recognize users when they request a page. For example, the web server on a shopping site keeps track of individual shoppers so the site can manage shopping carts and other user specific information. A cookie therefore acts as a kind of calling card, presenting pertinent identification that helps an application know how to proceed. Cookies are used for many purposes, all relating to helping the website remember users. For example, a site conducting a poll might use a cookie simply as a boolean value to indicate whether a user's browser has already participated in voting so that the user cannot vote twice. A site that asks a user to log on might use a cookie to record that the user already logged on so that the user does not have to keep entering credentials. Cookie limitations: most browsers supports cookie of up to 4096 bytes. Because of this small limit, cookies are best used to small amount of data, or better yet, an identifier such as a user ID. The user ID can then be used to identify the user and read user information from a database or other data store. Browser also impose limitations on how many cookies your site can store on the user's computer. Most browsers allow only 20 cookies per site. If you try to store more, the oldest cookies are discarded. Some browsers also put an absolute limit, usually 300, on the number of cookies they will accept from all sites combined. A cookie limitation that you might encounter is that users can set their browser to refuse cookies. If you define a P3P privacy policy and place in the root of your website, more browsers will accept cookies from your site. However, you might have to avoid cookies altogether and use a different mechanism to store user specific information. A common method for storing user information is session state, but session state depends on cookies as explained later in the section cookies and session state. Note: for more information on state management and option for saving information in web application, see ASP.NET State Management Overview and ASP.NET State Management Recommendations. Although cookies can be very useful in your application, the application should not depend on being able to store cookies. Do not use cookies to store critical features. If user application must rely on cookies, you can test to see whether the browser will accept cookies. See the checking whether a browser accepts cookies section later in this topic. Writing cookies. The browser is responsible for managing cookies on a user system. Cookies are sent to the browser via the HTTP response object that exposes a collection called cookies. You can access the HTTP response object as the response property of your page. Any cookies that you want to send to the browser must be added to this collection. When creating a cookie, you specify a name and value. Each cookie must have a unique name so that it can be identified later when reading it from the browser. Because cookies are stored by name, naming two cookies the same will cause one to be overwritten. You can also set a cookie's date and time expiration. Expired cookies are deleted by the browser when a user visits the site that wrote the cookies. The expiration of cookies should be set for as long as your application considers the cookie value to be valid. For a cookie to effectively never expire, you can set the expiration date to be 50 years from now. If you do not set the cookie expiration, the cookie is created but it is not stored on the user's hard disk. Instead, the cookie is maintained as a part of the user session information. When the user closes the browser, the cookie is discarded. A non-persistent cookie like this is useful for more information that needs to be stored for only a short time or that for security reasons should not be written to the disk on the client computer. For example, non-persistent cookies are useful if the user is working on a public computer where you do not want to write the cookie to disk. Thank you.